Recording stopped.
Hello.
Okay, it says it's recording again.
Okay, shall I start again?
Yeah, let's start again.
Okay. Calling the meeting to order at 5:46 p.m. Roll call. This is Brian, GC Vice President.
This is Rainey, GC Secretary.
This is Monique, GC member.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Agenda item 3, Governing Council Administrative Discussion and Action Items. 3.1, a recommendation to approve the agenda for the March 13th, 2025 regular meeting. Do I have a motion?
This is Rainey. I'll make a motion. Bear with me.
This is Monique, I second.
Thank you. Roll call votes. This is Brian. I approve.
This is Rainey. I approve.
Monique and I approve.
Thank you. Motion passes. Item 3.2, a recommendation to approve the minutes from the February 13th, 2025 regular meeting. If you haven't had a chance to do so, please go ahead and scan those, and I will accept a motion when ready.
This is Rainey. I make a motion to approve the minutes from February 13th, 2025 meeting.
This is Monique, I second.
Roll call vote. This is Brian. I approve.
This is Rainey. I approve.
Monique and I approve.
Motion passes. Item 3.3, a recommendation to approve the school calendar for the 2025-2026 school year. Lori.
Yes. If you look at the materials loaded for the meeting, I have uploaded Albuquerque Public Schools calendar as well as a draft calendar for Mountain Mahogany. Traditionally, Mountain Mahogany follows APS's calendar as much as practical, especially when designing winter break and spring break. This year, we are proposing that we start on August 4th for a half day of school, which is like an orientation registration day, and that is also a half a day of PD. And then our first full day of school would align with APS, which would be August 7th. In August, we would have 3 PD days. In September, we would have 21 school days, 1 holiday, Labor Day. In October, we would have elementary school would have 19 school days, middle school would have 21. The difference is the conference days, which are counted as school days for middle school because of the field trips and the student-led conferences, but are not counted as school days for elementary school. That also has to do with the number of days that the state allows for professional learning or conferences to be counted towards instructional hours or instructional days. The 10th would be a PD day. This would be for student or teachers to complete the mandated required online trainings. And the 13th would be a holiday. November, you'll see that Tuesday, November 4th is there is no school for students or school employees. That aligns with state law. November 24th and 25th will be school days. For the past at least 5 years, Mountain Mahogany has had a whole week off for Thanksgiving, but in order to keep the school year in between August and early June, that was not possible this year. I also did get some feedback from school employees who said that having a whole week off was challenging for students because it was harder for them to stay in the rhythm and the routine of going to school. I also have traditionally gotten some feedback from families that say, this is a little bit of a challenge for us from a childcare perspective because we don't have those days off of work. In December, we would be looking at 14 instructional days with 1 PD day at the end of the semester to allow for grading and progress towards goals. In January, we would have 1 PD day on January 5th to do planning for the new semester, and then 1 holiday on the 19th. That's Martin Luther King Day for 19 instructional days. February has 19 instructional days with one holiday, which is President's Day. March has 18 instructional days for elementary and 20 for middle school. And we are planning spring conferences on March 12th and 13th, similar to this year. So again, it will be field trips and student-led conferences at the middle school level, and it'll just be family conferences at the elementary school level. We will have spring break, which is aligned with APS, starting March 30th and ending April 3rd. That is later by 2 weeks than in this year, but that's just the way things shook out. There are 19 instructional days in April and 20 in May, where there's one holiday, which is Memorial Day. We will have 2 PD days at the end of the year, the 1st and the 2nd. And then the 3rd, 4th, and 5th are to add additional days for middle school. So that will be our TREC. Ideally, that will be 7th and 8th grade students because those are the students that require the extra additional hours. We did look at an alternate calendar that had us coming back a day earlier, so pushing employees coming back into July 31st, starting the first day earlier, and then that gave us at least one day back in that Thanksgiving break time. I circulated around today with the two options. And folks who were at the school, which was probably about 20 people I talked to, probably preferred the version I'm presenting to you by about 2 to 1. But we did consider an alternate version. This was presented to faculty and staff at a full faculty and staff meeting, which would have been, I think, last week on Tuesday. So this is the calendar I'm presenting to the Governing Council for your approval. I am already late sending it to APS, so I would love to get it approved tonight so that we can start sharing it with families and allow APS to start building next year's synergy so we can schedule students. Are there any questions about the calendar?
I have a question.
Yes.
When you do the calendars, is there any communication with RGEC about aftercare during the extended breaks?
I have had conversations with them. I have requested aftercare during breaks or not aftercare, like full day care. On at least one occasion, they said they could do it, but I just don't think they had enough families that took advantage of it for them to think that it was financially viable in the future. Um, they may be willing to do it if families are willing to pay. But in the past, we have, like, for example, I did ask them, RGEC, for the conference days today, if they would be able to either provide aftercare for kids who are on the field trip, or if they would be able to provide full day care. And they asked and said that they were not. But I will put that on my list to continue asking, and I will just send them the whole calendar and see what we could do planning forward.
Thank you. I know we have a lot of kiddos in their programs, and
Yes.
working parents need as much help as they can get.
Yes.
Lori, reading the calendar,
Mhm.
teachers return on Friday, August 1st. That's the proposal.
Teachers return on Friday, August 1st. That's correct.
Right. And then whenever I look at a calendar, whether it's in this role or when I was in the classroom, I'm always looking for those random days where there's a weekend, maybe one day of school and then a day off. And
Mm-hmm.
it's one on Monday, November 3rd, right before the election day.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any concerns about attendance on that particular day, or just broadly speaking, do you have any when that happens, do you typically plan something special for the day to encourage students to not make it a 4-day weekend?
Yeah, I mean, of course I have attendance concerns. I think that frequently it's driven by parental decisions, right? And not student decisions. I will look at the idea of planning something special for that day. If it was up to me, I wouldn't, we wouldn't have a day off on Tuesday on that Tuesday, but it's not. And I couldn't find another good place to put that day of school without spilling into the June, otherwise you'd be looking at one day of school on June 1st, which would have the same concerns.
I would have more concerns with that approach.
Yeah, even more concerns.
I believe that's my only question. Rainey, did you have any questions for Lori?
I don't have any questions now.
Well, with that in mind, I'm happy to entertain a motion for the calendar.
Mrs. Rainey, I make a motion to approve the school calendar for the 2025-2026 school year.
This is Monique. I second.
Okay, roll call vote. This is Brian. I approve.
Mrs. Rainey, I approve.
This is Monique, and I approve.
And the motion passes. Item 4, public comments. Is there anyone online who wishes to provide public comment this evening?
Right, there's no public comment in the chat.
Thank you very much. Item number 5, stakeholder reports and action items. Item 5.1, discussion director's report. Lori, back to you.
Brian, would you be willing to switch the order so that Lauren could present as a part of the head teacher report, and then I would follow with the director report?
Absolutely. And Lauren, just to check in with you, I mean, obviously we have a quorum, but I'll leave it up to you whether you want to present to the three of us or at a future meeting when you have the ability to talk to all of us.
I'm happy to present right now.
Okay. Then how about we give the floor to you?
Okay, hello everyone. Nice to see you. I'm Lauren. I'm the kindergarten teacher at Mountain Mahogany Community School, as I'm sure all of you know. And I'm really excited because there is a program called the Learning in Places program that I learned about when I first kind of started doing more of the outdoor education, really like thinking how I could structure our time outside with my students. And so I've actually known about it for a long time, but then they started doing outreach to our state specifically. And so of course I said I wanted to be a part of it. And so am I allowed to share my screen?
You should be.
Okay, great. Okay, I just need to make sure I have the right tab open, but let me just hang on a second. So I just want to show you an overview of what the learning in places, what they like to call the storyline looks like. It's called the seasonal storyline for field-based science education. So it really aligns to what we are doing at our school with having field-based education. And so it kind of starts out with this idea of getting everyone to wonder about the place that they're at. So it can be like an outdoor space at Mount Mahogany, but it really could be targeted towards the outdoor spaces that we explore in the Bosque. And then what it develops into is asking a question about that place and how we could either learn more about the place or if there's any changes we want to make. So an example that really has been at the forefront of my mind lately is the cottonwood tree that had to get cut down at our school. And the question that we could be asking in this situation is, should we plant another tree in its place? But really, we can only make that decision if we really understand the history of Mountain Mahogany through many different lenses. The environment of Mountain Mahogany, like that very specific, like grassy circle place. And then also just what we see the future of Mount Mahogany. Do we see more buildings? Do we see more trees? Like, how would this impact the plumbing system and all of that kind of stuff? So that's a very like basic example of how this storyline can interact and help us examine decisions that we're making about our natural environment. And a lot of it does incorporate like the community, so not just the classroom, but the community in making these decisions. Overall, though, the entire goal of this is to help children and families become ethical participants in their places and also ethical scientists, and for every child and every family to see their cultural and scientific knowledge as valued and having a place in our world. And so when Leora spoke a little bit about it, it really, actually, I wanted to say to Leora that has been geared and designed for older students, but we can use it for any grade level. And so this program gives a ton of resources. Can you see this example of some of the resources? And it's very in depth. All of this is part of a research project through Northwestern University and University Bothell in Washington State. And so that's where they'll be having what they like to call summits this upcoming summer. And so it's a very large project, and they are really seeking schools and communities that are willing to take this on and continue to pilot the work and do it. It's a lot of ongoing development for me actually to participate in. And yeah, so to continue to develop so that this can be spread broader. And I really believe in this work because it really aligns with our mission specific goals, and then also our mission, of building critical thinkers who really think about where they're at and the place that they're at. I'm going to stop sharing. Or I don't know if you all are able to ask questions or any thoughts or anything that people would like to share. I've been piloting it in my classroom and then also doing regular check-ins, I forgot to say, with the Learning in Places community. It's very highly structured, how they have you follow up. And then also with the science, the PED science department and the outdoor education department as well. And so if our school participated more, which sounds like we want to, there'd be opportunities to really show how amazing Mountain Mahogany is and what a place it can be for these new innovative programs, and we can really bring something to the state of New Mexico.
Lauren, thank you for that. The first image that you shared, what immediately jumped out to me was the alignment to the next gen science standards. So I appreciated seeing that. And I also appreciated how you talked about the mission specific goals, which also means that there's an alignment to our new strategic plan. So I also appreciated that. So thank you so much. Have you thought about how, I don't know if efficacy is the right word, but have you thought about how you're going to measure the extent to which this has had an impact on outcomes for your students?
Yes, I have actually. As far as it's directly tied to the curriculum I'm teaching. I think that's kind of why we say in the young grades, because the curriculum for our literacy is really tied to these very similar ideas. And so that is how I can see the outcomes, and also the level of parent participation in these different activities. So it's very measurable. And then ultimately, kind of like I said, this is part of a larger research study. So they are kind of using our general outcomes as well for their own thing to demonstrate the worthiness of this endeavor.
When that study wraps up, it would be amazing if you could come back and talk to us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I forgot to add that it's similar to Mount Mahogany. There's a large social emotional component to this, and also anti-racism component to this, and really supporting how we support student behavior is very much a part of this program as well, and part of the training for teachers that go through it. So they measure part of the, like, what they like to call the affective states of the teachers and the students as they go through this.
So it sounds multidisciplinary.
Yeah, that's exactly it. We're calling it transdisciplinary. So it's like moving through and blending all these things, because for so long we've separated things in silos, and really that's not how humans work and how we make decisions. And the scientific community needs to hear that we can't keep making these decisions in isolation.
Awesome. Rainey and Monique, did you have any questions or comments about Lauren's presentation?
No, this seems like a really, really cool program. Like, really cool.
Yeah, thank you for bringing it to us and for continued work. And I think the more we can talk about the connection between the outdoors and student outcomes and social emotional learning, and how those three big things interact, is great for all of our students and probably the teachers too.
Yes, that is definitely part of it.
And just to wrap up, I would say that your term of transdisciplinary is better than my term of multidisciplinary. Well, Lauren, thank you so much for taking the time, and we invite you back to hear about how things transpire.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Lauren.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Shall we continue with the teacher reports? Okay.
Leora, you're muted.
Oh, I'm getting there. That was my teacher report. I'd love to add on to Lauren just ever so slightly, because she and I have been working, plotting about how to make this really take root at Mountain Mahogany. And so this last Bosque visit, we actually took the work that is from Learning in Places. We usually do journaling in the Bosque as part of our Bosque experience for the kids, but this time we took very specific work into the Bosque, and we talked a lot about the relationship we have with nature, and how does that come about, and how do we develop a relationship with nature, not just go out and be in it, but how do we develop an idea of what relationship is to nature with children. And it was really great, and the kids really responded to it and spent probably the better part of 40 minutes writing. I had second graders writing in the Bosque, Brian, and it was just, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. It was really wonderful. And what I really love is that the idea of letting questions just sit. So it wasn't that Lauren and I were handing out answers to children. It was like, yeah, I wonder what that would be like. I wonder what that would feel like. So just lots of really rich, sort of open-ended questions, letting them think about that. So I really appreciated that. And hopefully we'll have more of that very soon to come. And that's my head teacher report.
It can be challenging to get our students to write sometimes.
Yeah, it is. But what's really great is when you find that magic, that motivator, right?
Yep.
And I think because my students have been there throughout the year, I do writing prompts that are just sort of open-ended, like, tell me about a time you were really proud of yourself. So they're sort of used to those prompts anyway. But when we start talking about nature and being in the bosque and what relationships are to nature, they really responded to it. It was cool.
And it looks like there isn't a formal report on the website, correct?
No, not
Okay.
yet.
Was there anything else that you wanted to touch on from a teacher's perspective since you have the floor?
Um, no, I think, we're continuing our work around how do we improve math scores for our students at Mount Mahogany. I mean, I think that for me as a teacher, it's really on my mind, especially as we go through conferences. Um, it's always on my mind, how do we improve? How do we improve? And so I think we're still working on that. One of the things I love about being at Mount Mahogany is that we have these PLCs that are led by teachers who are also trying to figure this out, and I feel like we do a really good job of collaborating in that environment. And the math, the family math night is of course a family event and it's a time to get together, but it's also a time to help try to pull parents into why this is so important. It's not just that we have a job to do and you kind of need to help us out here. It's that this is really important. Your children are going to become adults and they're going to be out in the world, hopefully getting jobs and, being a part of innovation and change. And their math skills have to be good and great, actually. And so how do we get there? And so I think that's really been on my mind lately. How do we conquer that? Lori's like, yeah, yeah, how do we do that? And so I think there's that, we just continue to try to improve in all areas. So. Anybody have questions for me? Anything at all? No. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for your ongoing commitment to both days. They're so important and
Oh, we
you
love
know,
them. Yeah.
it's so great.
Thank you, Monique. I have a student teacher that I'm working with this year from UNM, and she's very much driven by the idea of outdoor learning, and so she really loves being at Mount Mahogany. And she had her first trip with us into the Bosque, and she was like, "This is amazing." I said, "Yes, it is." And my second graders walked 4 miles on Monday, so I know, right? It's pretty cool. And so the work that Lauren is doing, and I'm hoping to become, an official part of that. I just, I think if we want to continue to grow, not just competent, mathematicians and writers, but humans who really become stewards of our environment, we have to do more, I think. Okay, now I'm done.
Thank you, Leora.
You're welcome, Brian.
Let's go back to item 5.1 for the director's report.
Thank you. There was a written report uploaded, and I will share some of those highlights now. Normally I provide enrollment and special education enrollment data at the top of the report. I omitted that this time because we've passed the last count day for the year as far as what our enrollment will be based on for the budget. That's the 120th day, which was in February. I think we've had 3 students withdraw since then. We won't enroll new students until next year. With special education, again, the data is exactly the same as it was presented for the 120th day. I do anticipate we'll have several initial evaluations done before the end of the school year based on parent requests and teacher referrals. We also will have a number of students who were identified as gifted based on the gifted screening process that we put into place in 2nd grade. So I'll expect those to likely happen before the end of the school year. If they don't, they can be held at the beginning of next year, but I'd prefer to hold them now just because of the way the state changed gifted identification procedures. Different schools have different procedures now. So it would make sense that if a student was identified here, the IEP is created here because it's not 100% certain that even if we sent a referral onto the next school, if the IEP isn't written, if they will have the same criteria. It is an exciting time of year. It's lottery season. On March 1st, we held a open house. That was a Saturday. Saba hosted interested middle schoolers, and I presented in Leora's classroom to interested elementary school families. We had a great turnout of families for that, some of whom had met us at the school choice fair and came to our open house. Friday, tomorrow, is the last day to submit a lottery application form, and it's also the last day to complete our intent to re-enroll form. And we will hold the lottery on Monday, the 24th, which is right after spring break when we're back. So we had 204 students eligible to return. That's just obviously eighth graders are not eligible to return. Of those right now, we have 184 or 90% who plan to return, and we have 20 who do not plan to return. The most common grade for students not planning on returning is fifth grade. That is highly consistent with historical trends at Mountain Mahogany. And generally, I think it's usually right around 50% of students stay and 50% of students move on. So again, very normal information for us. Common reasons that students are not returning include they are moving out of state. They are moving to a closer school within Albuquerque for transportation reasons, or they are moving to a private independent school or specialized charter school, or possibly a larger middle school that has things Mountain Mahogany does not offer. As far as the lottery, we are in good shape. We have received, as of yesterday, 212 applications. That's the largest number of applications we've had in the lottery for many years. I think in 2019, 2020, we had 211 applications. So I guess that would be 6 or 7 years. Per normal, the largest number of students are looking for a kindergarten spot. The second largest number of students are looking for a sixth grade spot, but substantial numbers of kids looking for spots in our elementary school and our seventh grade as well. Even a few kids looking for a spot in eighth grade, even though they would only be able to be here 1 year. So we will hold the lottery. We will start with eighth grade and move down to kinder. We will offer siblings of current students automatic spots, assuming that there are enough vacancies in that grade level to be able to accept a sibling. And then we will offer, spots as they're drawn in the lottery. And if you're drawn in a lottery, let's say your sixth grader is drawn in the lottery, if you have a younger student, they then become a sibling. And so then they will be offered spots as well, assuming there's room in those grades. So it's all done via random number generator, and we do live stream it on Facebook. It's not very exciting. You're just looking at us, looking at computers. But it is very exciting for us because we get the joy of offering spots at the school to families and seeing how happy they are to accept and meeting them and giving school tours and, shaping our school community for the upcoming school year. Our gardening program has been singled out for some wonderful attention. Mary Holyoke, our community school coordinator, nominated us for a Get Kids cooking package from Sprouts, valued at over $10,000. It would be for the 25-26 school year. I think basically there is an application that I have to complete, but it's one of those, like if you complete the application, you've already kind of moved into the finalist stage. The funding will include a stipend for teachers working in this area, cooking utensils, and $2,000 in Sprouts gift cards. It's a really perfect fit for what Nisa has been doing in the garden, both with our younger kids and especially with the middle schoolers. They have been doing smoothies, and I had some really delicious like blue corn pancakes that they made the other day. They've done risotto, they do salads and salsas, and so it's just been really wonderful to see how she's built our garden back up to this really, really thriving, wonderful part of the school. And so hopefully we'll be doing even more with that next year. We are doing some facilities improvements. We received a grant to make improvements to our kitchen. This was very needed as we are serving a lot more school meals than we ever have before. We are going to be installing a hot water heater, a 3-compartment sink, a hand washing sink, and a grease trap. You might remember you guys also approved spending, I think it was like $13,000 on a Retherm, which is a big fancy school oven. So we're really making some improvements to our kitchen as well. And we'll be making some updates to the garden, outdoor classroom, putting a new roof on and changing the fence to completely enclose the area at both sides. So that will be taking place. We've been doing a lot of field trips recently. All the 6th and 7th graders took a field trip to see The Outsiders at a local theater company. That was on February 28th. This is while 8th graders had to take the NAEP assessment, so I thought it would be a good idea to get the other kids off campus so our 8th graders could concentrate on the NAEP. We also had the trip to Tingley Beach for fishing, and our 3rd graders took the train to Santa Fe on Friday, March 7th. They participated in a rally for public lands, and they were really cute and really enjoyed it. We've already talked a lot about outdoor learning in the Bosque, so I'll just pass over that. I will let everyone know that Mountain Mahogany plans to participate in a summer literacy program. This is funded by the state. This will be the 2nd year that the summer literacy program has been happening. The school doesn't get the money and then hires people. You refer people and they apply directly to work for the state. So far we have 4 people who've said they would be willing to be instructors. It's a very small program. The design is for students to 1 teacher. It's really meant to focus on reading and specifically, I think, on structured literacy, so gaining those foundational reading skills. So it's ideal for kids in the early grades, all of whom are gaining those skills, or for kids in the later grades who may have some struggles in that area and could use extra support. Right now, the state has appropriated funding to take that program through the end of June, but they're hopeful that funding will be in the budget to also provide it in July. So I will keep the governing council posted. And we also, I mentioned gifted screening. So we screened 21 2nd graders and 8 of them scored at the 20th percentile or above using the Kaufman Brief Intelligence Test, meaning those kids will move on to a full evaluation process. So really, really proud, really interested in seeing how this new gifted identification process is going to shape the learning experience for kids at Mountain Mahogany specifically, but also in the state in general going forward, because it's, always been true that our students have many, many gifts, right? And so designing a system around recognizing that, I think has a lot of benefits. This is less good news. So, as a district authorized charter school, title fundings, meaning federal fundings, as well as IDEA B, which is federal funding for special education, come to the state, and then they're dispersed to the local district, who then disperses it to the schools under that local district. So APS considers Mountain Mahogany one of the schools that would receive title funding underneath its overall application. They changed the threshold by which a school could qualify for being considered a school-wide Title I from 50% low-income students to 60% low-income students for the upcoming school year, 25-26 school year. Mountain Mahogany's data show that we are at 57% low-income kids. So I was informed by APS last week, maybe, I think it was last week, that we would not be considered school-wide Title I, which means we would not receive any funding, any of that federal funding that passes through the state to the district. We would not be receiving any of that. This year we received 52,000, so that will be an impact to our budget as we go forward in the budget process. It's a bummer. I mean, I think if like 3 or 4 students had been determined to be economically disadvantaged, then we would be looking at receiving that funding. So it's a very, it's just, well, as you can say, 3%, that's not very many kids when you're talking about 227 enrolled students. The way that it's determined if what percentage of students at a school are considered economically disadvantaged, you count all the students who are directly certified for public benefits. So that includes SNAP or food stamps, that includes Medicaid, that includes, but only students whose income falls below the 135% of the median income threshold for Medicaid. Some students can qualify for Medicaid with a higher income. If they're a foster student, if they are homeless, then they're considered directly certified by the state. And then the federal government sets a multiplier of 1.6 to account for all the kids who didn't apply for benefits or would have been considered a reduced lunch, not a free lunch. So that's how we get to the 57%. And then finally, this is just following the school's policy. If you have instances of restraint, which is where a student is in imminent danger of harming themselves or others, I'm supposed to notify the governing council that those took place. We had one incident in the first quarter and one incident in the third quarter. When that happens, there is a lengthy form that is filled out. The family has to be informed and is always on the day of the restraint. If it's a student with a IEP and then there are 2 restraints within 30 days, you would have to hold an IEP meeting to address the student's needs. All of our staff are trained in non-physical de-escalation, verbal de-escalation, which works almost all of the time. Unfortunately, it does not work perfectly 100% of the time. And so sometimes this is necessary to keep kids safe, but it is always, always the last resort. And it is never anything that, we want to be doing at school. So just making the governing council aware of that per our policy. Questions about the overall director report? I know I went through a lot of information, and so please feel free to ask any follow-ups you might have.
Lori, I only had one. You had mentioned, I think, on Monday in the finance meeting that you were hoping that you had a Hail Mary pass um, in your pocket in terms of the funding. I assume that's
I haven't gotten a definitive answer. So, we were able, for background on what Rainey's talking about, Mountain Mahogany was able to access a different report of students that says that these students have Medicaid and that their income, at least when they applied for Medicaid, was under the threshold of what should be considered free. And so therefore, if this report is accurate information, that would change our numbers. There are 2 problems with this. One is I don't have a good way of making sure that this information is accurate, so I'm pursuing that. The other is there's a likelihood that APS might say, well, that was the data that was in the system at whatever point we pulled the report, and so you're going to have to live with it even if it was incorrect data. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to continue to push on it, because if students who should have been picked up by the system were missed for Mount Mahogany, it is highly likely that they were missed at other schools as well. Because, the state has had a number of challenges with their data systems recently. What I was told by someone at APS is that they only found 4 students in the whole district who qualified for Medicaid who weren't also already signed up for SNAP for the food stamps benefit. To me, that seems strange. Now, I know that there are cross systems that are supposed to get kids, who have food stamps on the healthcare program and vice versa. Those must be working extremely well if only 4 kids out of, 60,000 kids didn't somehow get on one public program but not the other. But, that's what I was told.
So my understanding is that Medicaid enrollment played no role in those numbers.
Yes, but what I was told is that it is supposed to.
I think I don't think it's required. And going back through, because, as you know, I presented
Uh-huh,
at the charter budget call,
uh-huh.
and then I presented at 3 budget calls for the traditional schools as well. And in terms of what was included in terms of those benefit programs, Medicaid wasn't included. And my understanding is that the income thresholds are different.
I got it in writing from Penelope that Medicaid is supposed to be part of what makes a student directly certified.
Fascinating.
I agree.
And just going back through the slides in terms of how students qualify for Title I, those
Mm-hmm.
other income-based programs are mentioned, but Medicaid's not.
Yes, that's why I asked several times explicitly to the people in charge of the Title I program if it was supposed to be considered. And what I was told is that the Title I program didn't make the slides. It is a qualifying directly certified program, but only if the student's income is free and not reduced.
Hmm.
That's what I was told. So, you guys, it's confusing. I know. I find it very confusing. Um, I will continue to ask for more information.
Rainey, did you have any other comments or questions for Lori before I jump in?
No, please.
Okay. Lori, scrolling through, this was very comprehensive. Thank you.
Yes.
The intent to return forms, you know that I just like to make sure that I'm interpreting things correctly.
Mhm.
For the most common grade not to return, so fifth grade, which I agree makes complete sense. It says 13 out of 24. Should that be 13 out of 20?
No,
Is
I think
20?
it's 24 fifth graders.
Oh, is that what that? So I thought it was out of the 20 who didn't or aren't returning, 13 were fifth graders. But you're saying 13
Oh,
out of the existing fifth graders.
correct.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
And then, oh, just about the lottery. I will tell you, I forget if it was last year or the year before, I did tune in on Facebook. So
I'm glad
I
someone was there.
I can't help myself. And then, yeah, I'm really glad that you touched on the Title One funding because I just from my day work, I knew that was coming. So
Mhm.
thank you for addressing it
Of
within this.
course.
I think those are all of my comments and questions. Monique, any questions or comments for Lori about the director report?
Yes, on the restraint, are we making sure that we're offering follow-ups with counseling or the contracted? I always get mixed up on the contracted social workers or the counselor, but making sure that students who indeed get restrained at any time or are being offered comprehensive wraparound afterwards and support.
Yes. Yes. I mean, obviously, as restraint is a signal that a student has a high level of need. If they don't already have one, it would trigger a functional behavior assessment and a behavior intervention plan being created for the student. It would trigger referrals to mental health resources, both in and outside the school. If the student is already receiving services like social work, obviously we would be tying in the social worker, the occupational therapist, and the case manager for that student.
And for Leora too, I just think about the teacher should also be offered additional support when those things happen. If it's in the
Mhm.
classroom, we need to make sure that those teachers are getting some level of follow-up support.
Yes, that's well noted. Thank you for thinking of our teachers and their mental health. And not just our teachers, but the social emotional support team here is a really strong group of people, but everybody needs care.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Well, if I can, Monique, just real quick, jump in and say, yes, it's a really important thing to feel like you're not just alone in your classroom. And I will say one of the things that I love is that anytime I've had an issue, they're right there. Like there's no waiting time. If I make a call, which is not very often, but when I do, people are like they're seconds flat. So there's not I don't have any stress around, oh my gosh, I need somebody to show up right now. Like I know that when I call for support, somebody's going to be there. So thank you though.
That's great to hear on all sides for students and for the teachers.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you, Brian.
Items 5.3 and 5.4, family council reports, student council reports. For the student council report, I wonder if we can at some point brainstorm ways to get student voice included more with GC. I know we have we have both of these as they're both important. They're both standing items. And I think I know a little bit more about just the challenges with getting families involved, but we have a lot of students. So if we can just think about incorporating student voice in our meetings, I think that would be a great idea.
I hope you do see there is a written report this month.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So our student council has been active and they're working on writing their charter and bylaws. We planned the winter dance, I think we talked about at our last meeting. And I did ask, and they have started providing a written report. I would love, that's a certain kind of voice. I would love even more voice, Brian, like with students participating. I will work on that for sure.
Great. Thank you for pointing my direction toward the report. I'm just scanning that now. Okay, excellent. That brings us to item 6, Finance Committee. Item 6.1, a discussion of the summary from the previous Finance Committee meeting on March 10th.
All righty. I am going to start with going over where we are with our requests for reimbursements. And can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Fabulous. My machine's a little slow. So, so I'm going to go down to the bottom because that's where I started. So this is the school lunch, and Angelina has filed our claims for February. So you can see that they're about 2 months behind in reimbursing us right now. So hopefully that stuff will come through soon. And then if we go back up to the top, I care about that. We have submitted RFRs for most of the 20,000 funds through the end of January, and most of the reimbursements have come through. And we actually had one come through. Let's see, it's a little further down. This one, the out of school learning one, I believe, this came through on Monday. So I didn't show up in the bank until Tuesday. So it wasn't in the these reports that I ran. And I think if we look at the one that comes out of OBMS and that actually goes through there, you can see that they had approved it, but they hadn't cut the check yet at the time that I ran this report. So we do have a few others that we will be submitting as soon as we're back from break. Are there any questions on the request for reimbursements? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go into the financial statement for January. And this is our statement of financial position, and you can see that we had 667,000 and change in operational, and this is quite a bit more than we had last month. And this is because Mary's been doing quite a bit of work to move as much of our expenditures into our grants and out of operational as possible. And if we go to the last page of this report, you can see that we had $1,294,513 in total for our cash. And as always, this does look like a lot of money, but we need to always need to make sure that we have enough to cover summer payrolls. So, and our SEG has also been adjusted down. So moving forward, we won't be getting as much money every month, as we were at the beginning of the year. So, but I think we're still in a good position. And looking at this, now this is, January. So you saw that
Elizabeth?
we had, yes.
It's Mary. Can you
Yeah.
go back to that page? I just wanted them to the last page of the balance sheet. So the three funds that you see right there are our capital funds, and you'll notice that of that $1.2 million, there's probably almost $870,000. So a lot of our funds, our cash in the bank, are restricted funds for capital projects. So that's one of the reasons why we do have to be a little careful, because you can't spend those on operational costs.
And I was just going to point out as well that you can see that there's a lot of negatives in the grant funds. And for most of those, we have submitted in February and a few in March, a request for reimbursement. So when we see the February financials, those numbers should look a little better. Are there any questions on the statement of financial position? Okay. Perhaps, then I'm going to go on to the statement of revenue, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. And this allows you to see the revenue sources and the expenditures. Are there any questions on the statement of revenue, expenditures, and changes in fund balance? Do we lose Rainey? Or am I just not seeing him?
I'm still here.
Oh, there you are. I couldn't see your panel. Okay, and then this one is our disbursements for the month of January. Let me make that a little bigger so it's easier to see. Let me know if you have any questions on our disbursements for the month of January. And for those of you who don't know, WAP is a wireless access point. I had to ask. All righty. Brian, did you have a question?
No, I was just going to say that I love the expenditure of the local produce for farm to school.
Yeah, that's been a really popular program. So, yep. And they occasionally share stuff at the front office, so it's been a lot of fun. All right, next up is budget to actuals. And we do focus a lot on looking for negative functions, and we did have 5 in January. Let me see if I can find the first one. Let's see. There's 2 of them that you guys have already approved bars at the last meeting to fix, and those will be reflected in the February financials. And then for most of the rest of them, they will be in the many bars that we're presenting tonight. Sorry about that. And then there was one that was where we were. Oh, here's one right here. So this is a bar that you're going to be looking at tonight. This is for another special ed program that's for pre-K and kinder. And APS had put it into supplies and materials, but we're actually going to use it to pay for salary for our diag that was doing kinder assessments. And so that's one of the bars you'll be looking at, is to move those funds. But that's why this is negative here.
Elizabeth, I'm sorry. I
Yes.
believe that bar was actually approved last month and the transfer was approved by the PED on 3/5.
All right. Well, then my bad.
I think so.
Well, we'll find out when we go
sure.
through the bars. If you don't see it, then you already proved it. All right. And then I think, is this the one? 24,154. So this one, we're going to be moving. We had originally budgeted for paying for an external for doing professional development. And we're going to be using this for the teachers that are doing letters trainings. And we're going to move it into salary to cover their the time to do the letters training. And that is a bar that either you'll be seeing tonight or you've already approved. And this one, the 24,190. That's one that you guys already approved. And I think this is the one where we wanted to budget the rest of it. And we use this for our Awesomer instructors, and I put it all into the purchase orders for our contractors and forgot about our staff that are also doing awesome hours. And so I have now in February moved some of the purchase orders out of that code. So next month that negative will go away as well. And that's, I think, all 5 of them. So does anybody have any questions on the budget to actual statements? All right, well, with that, we will respectfully request that you approve the financial statements and cash disbursements for the month ending January 31st, 2025.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Is there a motion?
This is Rainey. I make a motion to approve the financial statements and cash disbursements for the month ending 1/31/2025.
This is Monique, and I second.
Thank you. Roll call vote. This is Brian. I approve.
This is Rainey. I approve.
This is Monique, and I approve.
Motion passes.
All right.
Now for the bars.
Now for the bars. Okay. So this bar is to, I think, let's see if I have this right here. So this will show, we found out after Mary built a budget after the beginning of the year that we actually got more money than we expected, which is great. So this bar is to budget the increase from what we originally budgeted to what we now have found out that we're getting. So it's going to go into some of the salary expenses for our ed fellows. And then also they gave us money for supplies for them, which we can use for professional development. So we've already had one of them go to a training, and so that's to cover that cost. Are there any questions on bar 2522 to budget additional revenue in ed fellows?
None for me. So item 6.3, a recommendation to approve bar FY 25-22. Is there a motion?
This is Rainey. I make a motion to approve bar FY 25-22.
This is Monique, I second.
Roll call vote. This is Brian. I approve.
This is Rainey. I approve.
Monique, and I approve.
Thank you. Motion passes.
All right, this is bar FY 25-23. And this one is to transfer funds to cover a portion of the community school coordinator salary. This is part of the work that Mary's been doing to shift things out of operational and into the grant funds as much as possible. And this is the document that basically shows you what she's doing with that. So are there any questions on bar FY 25-23?
I just wanted to, it's Mary. I just wanted to reaffirm, not only are we moving money out of operational, because you have to be very careful in fund tunnel in some grants as to supplanting and supplemental. Most of these costs, when you see something like this, they've recovered from a different title fund last year, covering it operational because we weren't sure that there would be title money to cover those costs. And as we have worked through the year, we had unspent funds that would have occurred in title funds. And so we try to find uses and get approvals to move things so that we don't leave money on the table.
So with that, item 6.4 is a recommendation to approve bar FY 25-23. Is there a motion?
This is Rainey. I make a motion to approve bar FY 25-23.
This is Monique. I second.
Thank you. Roll call vote. This is Brian. I approve.
This is Rainey. I approve.
This is Monique, and I approve.
Motion passes.
All right, this is bar FY 25-24, and this is to transfer funds from PD services to PD staff compensation. And I believe this one was, we had originally planned on hiring a contractor to help with attendance support, but we're actually using internal staff to do it. So it's moving money from the external code to internal salary code.
I'm sorry, Elizabeth.
It's not. I got it wrong again, didn't I? I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
you did.
Mary,
You
what is
keep-
this for?
This is
I did
title.
this second time I've done that. I
This
need
is-
better notes, clearly.
This is Title II, which is principal and teacher support. And we have, in the past, we had some structured literacy grant from the state to pay for teachers' letters training. This year it was reduced. It is a state grant, not a federal grant. And we are allowed to use Title II funds for teacher and principal professional development, which is what letters training is. So we're using, in order to use the title funds up, we'll be using these to help pay for the letters training.
So what Mary said. Any questions?
Item 6.5 is a recommendation to approve bar FY 25-24. Is there a motion?
This is Rainey. I make a motion to approve bar FY 25-24.
This is Monique. I second.
Roll call vote. This is Brian. I approve.
This is Rainey. I approve.
Monique, and I approve.
Motion passes.
So most of the rest of these, I'm just going to step in for just a second to, most of these are kind of automatically generated journal entries through the PED's reporting system. At this time last year, we had to guess how much money we would spend in all of our funds. And, sometimes we get close and sometimes we don't. And so we have to estimate what we're going to have left in each of our funds for cash balance. At the end of the year, once the audit is completed, the PED requires we upload those audited cash balance in, and it automatically generates a bar that says this is what you budgeted and this is what your true cash balance is, and this is the adjustment that needs to be made. When you see in this report, if you see a minus, that means that we had a less cash than we budgeted. If you see a positive, it's more cash than we budgeted. And so these journal entries, there's one that is automatically generated for operational that we do not, we void that bar because we don't want to, we have a tradition of not spending or not budgeting all of cash balance in order to hold funds back so that if something truly bad happens, then we have an ability to address those issues quickly. So what you're seeing here is the bars that are adjusted for the audited cash balance and where we're planning to spend those monies. And all of these are restricted funds. And I apologize, one says unrestricted fund balance, but it's actually restricted cash.
Okay.
Okay, Elizabeth.
Okay. So for this first bar, FY 25-25, this is the only one that's going to have additional parts. All the rest are just going to reflect what you saw in that report that I was just showing you. So this one, the first section is to adjust for the audited cash balance. The second one, we actually found out that the amount they're allocating, and this is the state portion of the meals, the University Healthy Meals, that this is what they were allocating for us. Mary had made a best guess based on what we had done last year. But it turned out that it's a little less than what they allocated was a little less than what we estimated. So that's the second bit. And then the third bit, in the fall, when we were using our previous food vendor, we were just paying them for food. But with the new vendor, we are now splitting the bill between food and professional services. So this maintenance bar allows us to budget for that appropriately. So are there any questions on bar FY 25-25?
Item 6.6, a recommendation to approve bar FY 25-25. Is there a motion?
This is Monique, and I make a motion to approve bar FY 25-25.
This is Rainey. I second.
Thank you. Roll call vote. This is Brian. I approve.
This is Rainey. I approve.
Monique, and I approve.
And the motion passes.
Okay, so then, like I said, all the rest of these are just going to be, oh, I was wrong. This one has another tweak too for the same reason. So this one is for the USDA portion of the food service program. First part is adjusting for cash balance. Second part is making that same change so that we can cover both food and professional services. Any questions on bar FY 25-26?
Elizabeth, for that top one, I'm looking at the bar adjustment column. So 10,386. So restricted cash balance is going to go down, and then food's going to go down as well. I guess, can you talk about why that is? Like the one on the bottom, like there's a negative one and a positive one. Why would the top one both be negative?
Because that's the adjusted cash balance was that we budgeted too much for cash. We actually had less left at the end of last year than we expected to.
Okay.
So one is a change of both revenue and cash balances considered by the state as revenue. So you're reducing revenue, so you have to reduce expense because they have to balance. The maintenance bar is moving it from one place to another. So you'll have a reduction and an increase because in a maintenance bar, you can't have a net change. Your cost in total can't change. It has
Yes.
to be it has to be the same in total.
Yep, that's what I had in my mind. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
No further questions on this. So, item 6.7, a recommendation to approve bar FY 25-26. Is there a motion?
This is Rainey. I make a motion to approve bar FY 25-26.
This is Monique, I second.
Thank you. Roll call vote. This is Brian. I approve.
This is Rainey. I approve.
Monique, and I approve.
Motion passes.
This is bar 25-27 to adjust budgeted cash balance to actual audited balance for the student activity fund. And that one we actually had more money.
Exactly. You'll
Yep.
see a net increase because we did not spend as much as I thought we would spend, which is traditional with you all.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Item 6.8, a recommendation to approve bar FY 25-27. Is there a motion?
This is Rainey. I make a motion to approve bar FY 25-27.
This is Monique. Can I second?
Thank you. Roll call vote. This is Brian. I approve.
This is Rainey. I approve.
Monique, can I approve?
And the motion passes.
This is bar FY 25-28 to adjust budget cash balance to audit actual balance for the Medicaid Fund 25-153. That one we did spend money. Got lots of cool nurses supplies.
Item 6.9, a recommendation to approve bar FY 25-28. Is there a motion?
This is Rainey. I make a motion to approve bar FY 25-28.
This is Monique. Can I second?
Thank you. Roll call vote. This is Brian. I approve.
This is Rainey. I approve.
Monique, can I approve?
Motion passes.
FY 25-29 bar to adjust budget cash balance to actual audited balance for the Mountain Mahogany Fund 26-195.
Item 6.10, a recommendation to approve bar FY 25-29. Is there a motion?
This is Rainey. I make a motion to approve bar FY 25-29.
This is Monique. I second.
Roll call vote. This is Brian. I approve.
This is Rainey. I approve.
Monique, can I approve?
Motion passes.
For FY 25-30 to adjust budget cash balance to actual audit balance for our HP 33 capital outlay fund 31,600.
Item 6.11, a recommendation to approve bar FY 25-30. Is there a motion?
This is Rainey. I make a motion to approve bar FY 25-30.
This is Monique. Can I second?
Thank you. Roll call vote. This is Brian. I approve.
This is Rainey. I approve.
Monique, can I approve?
Motion passes.
For FY 25-31 to adjust budgeted cash balance to actual audited balance for SB9 local capital outlay 31,701.
This is a very nice look. A couple years ago, we had used a lot of our Senate Bill 9 money to do renovations. And so Lori and I had a discussion about making sure we identified new things versus repairs and maintenance. And so we've been able to do a really nice job about getting that budget back up so that it gives us a better flexibility for repairs and maintenance at our facility.
Item 6.12, a recommendation to approve bar FY 25-31. Is there a motion?
This is Rainey. I make a motion to approve bar FY 25-31.
Monique, can I second?
Roll call vote. This is Brian. I approve.
This is Rainey. I approve.
Monique, can I approve?
Motion passes.
All right, the last one, bar FY 25-32 to adjust budget cash balance to actual audit balance for SB9 state capital outlay 31,703.
Item 6.13, a recommendation to approve bar FY 25-32. Is there a motion?
This is Rainey. I make a motion to approve bar FY 25-32.
This is Monique. Can I second?
Thank you. Roll call vote. This is Brian. I approve.
This is Rainey. I approve.
Monique, can I approve?
The motion passes. Great job, team, keeping all those bars straight.
With Mary's backup, yep.
Item 6.14, just a discussion item. The next Finance Committee meeting is scheduled for April 7th, 2025. Item 7, Policy Committee. 7.1, no summary from previous policy committee meeting. 7.2, next policy committee meeting to be determined.
This is Lori. I owe Monique and Aaron a huge apology. We had a meeting scheduled. It was my Zoom, and I completely got caught up on working with students and never made the meeting. So, Monique, do you want to try another lunch meeting, or I really
Yeah,
apologize.
no worries. We try again. I think we can try to schedule it without Erin here and hope that she can make it. And if not, we just try to move forward. But for me, lunchtime is the only for sure. No meetings are booked any day of the week. So if you could find a day this next month that might work for you, maybe it'll work for all three of us.
Okay. How do you feel about April 1st, Tuesday, April 1st?
I think that's a good day besides the omen. Maybe we'll have good luck and we won't break each other.
I will send that calendar invite for noon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Item 8, Academic Excellence Committee. 8.1, summary from Academic Excellence Committee meeting on March 5th. After a brief pause, the Academic Excellence Committee is back up and running. Lori, Kana, and I had a fantastic conversation. Just really good to get the committee back up and running after getting the strategic plan work done. Some of the things that we talked about at last week's meeting, we did dig into some assessment data, which Lori had presented at a very high level at a previous meeting. We spent some time looking at Dibble's data, specifically words read and accuracy percentages. We looked at that by grade level. And then we had a really great conversation about growth on iReady, looking at the amount of growth that students had by their initial placement on the really rich conversation regarding that. I did have an agenda item for the 5th, which we did not get a chance to talk about, regarding monitoring of the strategic plan, which we adopted in December, and that will be on the agenda for our April meeting. And speaking of the strategic plan, Lori, did you get that posted to the website or still working on that?
No, it's not posted yet, but it will be
Okay.
before the end of spring break.
Great, awesome.
Yeah.
I just expressed a desire. We are very proud, obviously, of the strategic plan, just making sure that we find a home for that electronically on the website. And our next meeting is scheduled for April 2nd. Are there any questions about the update for the Academic Excellence Committee? Rainey and Monique.
No questions.
Okay. Moving on to item number 9, Council Development Committee. 9.1, review status of board member training hours and training opportunities. Lori, I think we got an email relatively recently with an update with our hours. We are in the middle of March, and we need to make sure we have those done before June 30th, please. Item 9.2. Need to make sure that we're thinking about future candidates to serve on the governing council and potentially inviting those folks to future meetings. Lori, was there anything else that you wanted to add for that particular item? Recruitment?
Just that we did design a flyer, and that was shared in the front office, and I gave it to all the teachers, and I asked them to share it with families when they were having conferences. So hopefully that will spark some interest as we move towards the end of the school year.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Yep.
Lori, can you send that to us?
Yes.
I was thinking even like 5th grade graduation night might be a good time. Well, obviously before then, but any events that we have on campus would be a great time for us members to try to recruit other family members, hopefully.
Agreed. And yes, I will send that to everyone.
Thank you.
Item 10, Director Support Committee, nothing new to reports. Item 11, Audit Committee, nothing new to reports. And we have reached the end of the agenda. So for item number 12, I would happily entertain a motion to adjourn.
This is Rainey. I make a motion to adjourn.
This is Monique, and I was stuck on mute, and I second.
Was wondering if you wanted to hang out a little bit longer. With the second roll call vote, this is Brian, I approve.
This is Rainey. I approve.
Monique, and I approve.
Thank you very much. The meeting adjourns at 7:11 p.m. Thank you, everyone.